I will never forget that phone call at 5 in the morning. My phone lit up in the dark room, and on the other end, a frantic voice shouted, "John, you have to see this. A bear cub. It's asking a gorilla for help." I sat up straight, heart racing. For a second, I thought I was still dreaming. But no, it was real. I threw on whatever clothes I found, grabbed my boots and my field bag, and sprinted out the door. Within minutes, I was in my truck, tearing down the empty road. The sky still black, except for a faint glow on the horizon. The tires splashed through puddles left from last night's storm, and my hands gripped the wheel tight enough to hurt. As I drove, my mind was spinning. What did they mean by asking a gorilla for help? Was it some kind of bad joke? Gorillas don't belong here, not in this part of the country. Sure, we had Kira, the only gorilla in our care, but she was always kept within strict perimeters. Unless something had gone terribly wrong. The reserve's entrance loomed ahead, gates wide open. I flew through, my headlights bouncing off wet leaves and warning signs. I saw flashing red lights in the distance and pulled up hard, jumping out before the engine even stopped. Park rangers were clustered around a small tent, their faces drawn and tense. Mark spotted me and waved frantically. "John, over here." I jogged over, my boots sinking into the muddy ground. "What's going on? Where is it?" "You gotta see it yourself," Mark said, his voice shaking. "Come on." We pushed through thick, damp brush, the air heavy with the smell of wet earth and pine. My heart hammered in my chest. After a few minutes, we reached a small clearing, and that's when I saw it. About 15 feet up in a gnarled tree, a tiny bear cub dangled by one hind leg, caught in what looked like a rusty wire snare. It struggled weakly, tiny claws scraping at the bark, crying out in a thin, desperate wail. My stomach twisted at the sound. But that wasn't the craziest part. Right beneath the cub, sitting on a moss-covered boulder, was Kira. Calm, almost too calm. She wasn't pacing or panicking. She just sat there, her eyes locked on the cub, her massive chest rising and falling slowly. Her hands rested on her knees, fingers twitching slightly, as if she was thinking hard. I froze. Is that Kira? How the hell did she get out?" Mark shook his head. "We don't know. But John, watch. Look at the cub." The cub was stretching out one paw toward Kira, like it was pleading. I swear it wasn't just random movement. It was deliberate, purposeful. And Kira, she tilted her head, watching every move, her eyes glistening like she understood. I whispered, "Jesus Christ, this can't be real." Mark kept his voice low. "We've been here for over an hour. Every time we try to get close, Kira stands up, like she's guarding it." I crouched down a bit, trying to get a better view. Kira's eyes flicked to me but stayed calm. No aggression, no fear, just watching. "She's protecting it?" I murmured, more to myself than to Mark. "But why? Why would she care?" The cub let out another pitiful cry, its little body trembling from exhaustion. My gut clenched. We couldn't just stand here and do nothing. I pulled out my radio. "Sarah, we need the sedation kit now. Bring the ladder too. And hurry." The rain started again, light but steady, dripping off my hood and into my eyes. I wiped my face and kept staring. Minutes felt like hours. Kira stayed put, eyes darting between us and the cub. The cub's grip on the branch was slipping little by little. I tried talking to her, soft, calm. "Hey, Kira. Girl, it's okay. We're here to help. Let us help." Her eyes met mine. For a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. Felt like she was listening, really listening. Her lips moved, just slightly, and her fingers curled around a tuft of grass. She shifted her weight but didn't stand. Mark whispered, "She's letting you talk to her. That's new." I nodded, barely breathing. "Yeah, it is." Sarah's voice crackled over the radio. "We're 5 minutes out. Hold tight." The cub gave one last weak cry and dangled limply, too tired to fight anymore. My heart ached at the sight. I clenched my fists, staring at Kira, silently begging her to trust us. Mark glanced at me, eyes wide with fear and awe. "John, what do we do if she doesn't let us in?" I swallowed hard, never looking away from Kira. "We wait. We keep waiting. And we hope she makes the right choice." The rain kept falling, and in that moment all we could do was stand there. 3 species locked in one impossible moment, none of us ready to move first. I edged a few steps closer, my boots squishing into the soaked earth. Kira's gaze snapped to me immediately. She didn't growl or make a move to charge, but there was no mistaking the message in her eyes. Stay back. This wasn't a wild flinch of fear or anger. It was calm, controlled, and, honestly, chilling. The cub let out a whimper, its small paw once again stretching toward her. Kira's massive hand slowly lifted, almost like she was reaching back. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was a quiet communication happening right before us, something primal yet precise. I raised my radio. Sarah, status? We're in position, but Kira's blocking. No aggression yet, but very protective. Understood. Sarah's voice crackled back. We're a minute out. Mark was beside me, barely breathing. She's acting like that cub is her own. I nodded, eyes locked on Kira. I know. It's unreal. Carefully, I stepped forward again, keeping my body low, my palms up. It's okay, girl. We're friends. Remember? We just want to help the little one. Kira didn't move at first, but her eyes narrowed, calculating. I could almost feel her thinking. Slowly, she rose to her full height, towering and solid, her chest heaving once. Her arms spread slightly, blocking the path to the tree. It was clear. She wasn't going to let us pass. The cub's cries grew weaker, more strained. My gut twisted. We didn't have time for a standoff. I glanced at Mark, who was shaking his head, eyes wide with fear. We've got to do something, I whispered. We can't just stand here and watch. Suddenly, Kira let out a low, deep sound, a rumble that vibrated through my chest. She took one slow step forward, and I instinctively stepped back. But instead of advancing, she crouched near the base of the tree, resting one hand on the trunk, her eyes never leaving mine. She's showing us something, Mark breathed. She wants us to see. I didn't know if that was true or wishful thinking, but I crouched too, trying to understand. Kira tapped the tree lightly, once, twice, her fingers brushing the bark like she was pointing something out. My radio crackled again. We're here. Approach from the east side. Hold position, I replied quickly. Kira's communicating. I don't want to spook her. The cub gave another faint cry, and my heart clenched tighter. Every second counted now. Mark whispered, John, look at her hand. I looked closer. Kira was pointing at the trap. No, not just pointing. She was trying to touch the wire, her thick fingers struggling to grasp the delicate metal. She pulled back, frustrated, and looked at me again, eyes sharp and almost pleading. She's trying to help, I whispered in disbelief. She knows it's hurting the cub. Mark exhaled hard. This is insane. I took a breath, heart hammering, and stepped forward once more. Kira, let me, please. She stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, she backed up a step, lowering her arms just a bit. Not a full surrender, but permission. I moved in cautiously, every sense on high alert. The cub's eyes were glassy now, its tiny chest rising and falling fast. I reached for the trap, but before I could touch it, Kira suddenly let out a sharp grunt. I froze looking at her. She shook her head, an unmistakable human-like no. What is it? Mark whispered harshly. I don't know, I murmured. My hands trembled as I pulled back slightly. Kira pointed at the trap again, then at me, and then made a slicing motion across her chest. It hit me. She's saying it's dangerous. The wire, it might snap. I stood back, raising my hands in surrender. Okay, girl, we'll do it your way. Sarah's voice came through again. Do we move in? Negative, I said firmly. Hold for now. For the next tense minute, we watched as Kira moved with impossible care, her huge hands working clumsily but determinedly at the wire. She pulled, tugged, adjusted. The cub whimpered, but didn't fight her touch. Suddenly, with a sharp twang, the wire snapped. The cub tumbled down a few feet, landing safely in a bush. Kira backed off fast, sitting down and watching it closely. I rushed forward instinctively, but stopped myself, glancing at her first. She didn't move to stop me this time. I scooped up the tiny cub, feeling its trembling body in my arms. Its breathing was shallow, but it was alive. Kira sat silently, her deep eyes locked onto mine. Thank you, I whispered, not even sure who I was saying it to. Mark exhaled loudly, his hands shaking. John, what the hell did we just witness? I shook my head slowly, looking down at the cub, then back at Kira. I don't know, But it changes everything. The cub whimpered softly in my arms, and I could feel its tiny heart pounding like a drum. It was weak, its fur matted with blood where the wire had dug in. Kira sat still a few feet away, her dark eyes locked onto mine, breathing heavy but calm. For a moment, none of us moved. Sarah and the rest of the team finally caught up, wide-eyed and panting from running through the brush. Sarah gasped when she saw the scene. "Oh my God! John, is it alive?" I nodded. "Barely. We need to get it to the clinic now." Sarah moved to help, but I raised my hand. "Wait, let's not rush it. Look at her." Kira hadn't moved an inch, but every muscle in her body was taut. She was watching, alert, like she was making sure we wouldn't harm the cub. It hit me then. She wasn't just a bystander. She had taken responsibility for this little one in a way none of us could explain. "Film everything," I told Mark quietly. "We can't miss a second of this." Mark lifted his camera, his hands shaking, and started recording. I glanced down at the cub again. Its breathing was ragged, and tiny drops of blood hit the ground like a ticking clock. We didn't have much time. "Okay, girl," I said softly to Kira. "We need to help now. I promise we're not going to hurt it." I stepped back slowly, laying the cub down gently on a folded blanket. Kira's eyes never left me. Then, in a move that made my breath catch, she leaned forward, huge knuckles pressing into the mud, and crept closer. Her massive hand extended, fingers brushing lightly along the cub's side. She examined it, turning her head slightly, and let out a low, mournful sound that sent chills through me. Sarah whispered, She's checking it, like a mother would." "Yeah," I breathed. "She knows it's hurt bad." Kira suddenly did something that none of us expected. She began gently nudging the cub's paw, urging it to move, her face filled with something unmistakable worry. The cub gave a tiny cry but didn't respond much. My heart was racing. This wasn't just animal instinct. This was care. Real care. I leaned toward Sarah. "Get the sedative ready, but keep it low dose. We don't want to spook her." Kira's eyes flicked to us, and her brow furrowed. For a terrifying second, I thought she might snap, but instead, she did something extraordinary. She backed up, just a few feet, and sat down heavily, keeping her eyes on us but lowering her hands. It was as clear as a green light. "She's letting us in," Sarah whispered, astonished. "Okay," I said, voice shaking. "Let's move." Carefully, Sarah knelt beside the cub, working fast but gently, checking the wound and cleaning around it. Mark kept filming every second. I stayed crouched, eyes darting between Kira and the cub, adrenaline pounding through me. Suddenly, the cub let out a sharp cry, its tiny body convulsing. I shot forward, helping Sarah hold it still. "Easy, easy, little one. Hang in there." We worked in tense silence. Kira watched, her eyes dark and unreadable, her muscles tense but still. Every time the cub whimpered, her head twitched like she wanted to rush in but was holding herself back. Finally, Sarah secured the wound, wrapping it tightly. "Okay, we've stabilized it for now. We need to move." I scooped the cub up again, feeling its fragile weight against me. I looked at Kira, my throat tight. "We'll take care of it. I promise." Kira stared, unmoving, for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stood up, towering over us, and with a final look at the cub, she turned and disappeared into the trees without a sound. We stood there, frozen, barely able to process what had just happened. Mark lowered his camera, his face pale. Did we just witness that?" I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "Yeah, we did." Holding the cub close, I turned to the team. "Let's move. Fast." As we made our way back through the woods, my mind raced. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for now, we had saved a life. And that was all that mattered. The drive to the veterinary center was tense and quiet. I sat in the back of the van, cradling the bear cub against my chest, feeling every shaky breath it took. Sarah rode beside me, checking its vitals every few seconds. Mark and the others were up front, too stunned to talk much. None of us could wrap our heads around what had just happened. As we pulled away from the clearing, I glanced out the back window, and my heart skipped a beat. Kira, she was following us, moving slowly along the tree line, her huge frame slipping through the shadows like a silent guardian. Couldn't believe it. Even after everything, she wasn't done. "She's still following," I muttered. Sarah looked back and gasped. "Oh my God. She's coming all the way with us?" It seemed impossible, But sure enough, every turn we made down the dirt road, she kept pace, watching, never coming too close, but never falling behind. When we reached the reserve's outer boundary, Kira finally stopped. She stood there, gripping the fence with one massive hand, her eyes locked onto the van as we drove away. Even from that distance, I could feel the weight of her gaze. "Goodbye, girl," I whispered. "Thank you." At the clinic, the team was already waiting. We rushed the cub inside, and the vets sprang into action, working quickly to stabilize it. I stepped back, watching through the glass, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. My hands were still shaking. Later that night, back at the base, we gathered in the operations room. Mark set up the footage on the big screen. We watched it in silence. The cub hanging in the tree, Kira's strange, deliberate actions, her careful intervention. None of us could speak when it ended. Sarah was the first to break the silence. "We need to show this to someone. This changes everything." I nodded. "Agreed. Let's get it prepped and send it to the research center in New York. They'll know what to do with it." We spent hours editing and compiling the footage, making sure every second was clear. Within 24 hours, it was in the hands of top primatologists, wildlife experts, and behavioral scientists. The reactions were immediate and stunned. Emails and calls flooded in. Experts from around the world were baffled. Many admitted they had never seen anything remotely like it. Gorillas had been known to show empathy within their own species. But this, helping a different species, communicating so clearly, it shattered assumptions. A week later, I got a call from Dr. Howard Green, one of the leading experts in primate behavior. His voice was tight with disbelief. "John, I've watched your footage at least 50 times. There's something I need to tell you. We've been keeping tabs on Kira for years. And this isn't her first incident." I sat up straight. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "We had reports, small things we brushed off. 5 years ago, a ranger claimed he saw her guide a lost fawn back to its herd. 2 years later, another report said she stood guard over an injured fox until help arrived. We thought it was coincidence. But now I'm not so sure." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So she's what? Different? Special?" Howard was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but she's not following any textbook we've got. Keep watching her. There's more going on than we understand." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Kira, her eyes, her decisions, her quiet strength. I stared at the ceiling, wondering just how much we were missing, how many times we'd overlooked something incredible because it didn't fit into our neat little boxes. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. It had been nearly 3 weeks since that unforgettable day. The bear cub, now named Lucky by the clinic staff, was recovering faster than anyone had dared to hope. The wounds on its leg had healed into neat scars, and its energy had returned with full force. Every time I visited, it would clamber around its pen, eyes bright and curious, and I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of relief and awe. But something gnawed at me. Every day I thought about Kira, about her eyes, her actions, and the way she'd stayed with us until the very last moment. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than we'd seen. So, on a cool, clear morning, I decided to go back. I drove out alone, retracing the same bumpy, muddy road to the clearing where it had all started. The place was quiet now, birdsong filling the air, and the tree where Lucky had been trapped stood bare and still. I walked slowly around the area, eyes scanning the shadows, half hoping, half dreading I'd see that familiar dark shape again. "Come on, girl," I whispered into the trees. "Where are you?" But there was nothing. No sign of Kira. No rustling in the bushes. No flicker of movement. Just quiet. I stayed for over an hour, circling the clearing, calling softly, listening. But deep down, I knew Kira wouldn't just appear on command. She was smarter than that, and maybe, in her mind, her job here was already done. Back at the clinic that afternoon, Sarah met me at the gate, smiling. "You've got to see this," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Lucky's been restless all morning. I think he's waiting for you." I laughed, shaking my head. "He's getting spoiled." We walked over to Lucky's enclosure, and sure enough, he was pacing along the fence, standing on his back legs and peering out like he was searching for something. When he spotted me, he let out a soft grunt and trotted over, pressing his little paws against the wire mesh. "Hey, buddy," I said, crouching down. "You're looking good." Suddenly, Lucky froze, his ears perking up, eyes locked on something behind me. I turned, and my heart nearly stopped. Kira. She was standing at the edge of the trees, just outside the clinic's outer fence. Massive, silent, watching. Her eyes met mine for a long, weighty moment, then shifted to Lucky. The cub let out a high-pitched cry and began pawing at the fence, frantic and excited. I stepped back, giving them space. Kira moved closer, right up to the other side of the fence, towering over it, her hands gripping the chain link softly. Lucky was on the other side, standing on wobbly legs, pressing his tiny paws to hers through the metal. It was like watching a reunion between old friends or something deeper. No one said a word. Sarah and the others had gathered quietly behind me, stunned into silence by the sheer impossibility of what we were seeing. Kira didn't make a sound. She just stood there, looking at Lucky with eyes full of, I don't even know the word for it. Care? Relief? Something bigger than anything we could define. Lucky whimpered softly, leaning into the fence until his little nose was pressed flat. Kira leaned down too, so close their breath fogged up the same patch of air, even with the barrier between them. It was so gentle, so full of unspoken meaning, that I felt my throat tighten and my eyes sting. Minutes passed like that, frozen in time. Then, slowly, Kira backed away. She looked at me one last time, a deep, lingering gaze that seemed to ask a question I couldn't answer. And then she turned, disappeared into the trees, and was gone. Lucky stayed pressed to the fence for a long time after, staring at the spot where she'd been, as if waiting for her to come back. I didn't move, couldn't. I just stood there, silent, heart pounding, mind racing with 1,000 questions and no answers. What had we just witnessed? What bond had formed between these two creatures so different, yet somehow connected? And more than anything, what do we really know about the hearts and minds of the animals we share this world with? As the sun dipped lower and the shadows grew long, I turned away at last, leaving Lucky to his quiet vigil. I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never see the world the same way again.